The fluorescent lights in Dr. Susan Chen's office hummed as Richard gripped Margaret's trembling hand. October 15th, 2016. The words, "early-stage Alzheimer's disease," hung in the air like smoke. His wife, of 42 years, looked at him with eyes that already held the first shadows of forgetting. That evening, Richard called his son Brandon, a cardiovascular surgeon finishing his prestigious residency at Johns Hopkins. "Son, it's about your mother. Dr. Chen confirmed it today. Alzheimer's disease." The silence stretched. When Brandon finally spoke, his voice carried hesitation. "Dad, Jennifer and I will visit soon, I promise." But that visit never came. Jennifer, Brandon's wife of 2 years, had other plans. She'd grown up in wealth, the daughter of Manhattan lawyers who viewed family obligations as inconvenient distractions from professional advancement. The bills started immediately. $23,000 monthly for Margaret's care. Richard earned $68,000 annually as a fire department training officer, working toward his captain's promotion. The mathematics were brutal and simple. He couldn't do both. So he chose her. On November 3, 2016, Richard submitted his resignation. 34 years of service, pension benefits, the respect of his crew, all sacrificed. Fire Chief Mike Anderson tried desperately to change his mind. "Richard, you're 3 years from full retirement. There has to be another way." "This is the only way that matters, Mike. Your son should be here helping you through this." "Brandon's building his surgical career. I won't ask him to sacrifice that opportunity." Mike's expression revealed what his words didn't. Richard shouldn't have to ask. That first year, Richard called Brandon 127 times. He kept meticulous count. Brandon returned perhaps 20 of them. Always rushed, always apologetic, but with Jennifer's voice often audible in the background, directing his responses. "Dad, I want to help, but Jennifer thinks it's better if we maintain some boundaries. She says it'll be less confusing for Mom if we don't visit irregularly during her decline." Boundaries. That became Jennifer's favorite weapon. In one of the rare calls Brandon answered in 2018, Richard could hear tension threading through his son's voice like wire. "Dad, I'm ashamed seeing Mom like this deteriorating. I remember her being so strong, so capable. And now Jennifer says I should focus on our future together instead of dwelling on the past. Brandon, she's not the past. She's your mother, and she's still here fighting. I know, Dad, but it's just so hard to witness." Thanksgiving 2017. Richard set 3 places. At the oak table, hoping against all reasonable hope. Margaret wore her best dress. The blue one, Brandon always said, made her eyes sparkle like sapphires. She'd been having a good day, rare and precious. "When is Brandon coming?" she asked every 10 minutes, her face lighting with anticipation. His text arrived at exactly 4:30 p.m. "Sorry, Dad. Jennifer planned something last minute. Give Mom my love and apologies." Richard discovered later from Jennifer's Instagram pictures of them at an upscale resort in Miami. Her caption read, "Escaping family drama to enjoy real life. #grateful, #no stress, #boundaries." When Richard confronted Brandon about it, his son became immediately defensive, protective of Jennifer's decisions. "Dad, Jennifer didn't want me going back while Mom was not well. She said it would affect my career focus and professional development negatively." By 2019, Margaret's condition had worsened significantly, her lucid moments becoming increasingly rare. In one of the few video calls Brandon attempted that year, Margaret asked innocently about her grandchildren. Children that had never existed because Jennifer wasn't ready for kids with all this family instability surrounding them. Brandon cut the call short abruptly when Margaret repeated the question, confusion clouding her features. "Mom, I don't want Jennifer to see you like this deteriorating. She thinks it's better to keep distance to avoid unnecessary heartbreak for everyone." The medical bills kept climbing relentlessly. Home health aides, physical therapy, experimental. Medications, specialized equipment. Richard refinanced their house twice, systematically burning through retirement savings he'd built over decades. When he sent Brandon copies of major medical bills, hoping desperately he'd offer financial help, his responses were clinical and distant. "Dad, have you looked into state assistance programs?" Jennifer researched some options online that might reduce costs. State assistance for his mother, the woman who'd worked 2 jobs to pay for his medical school tuition. Christmas 2020 was devastating beyond measure. Margaret had been asking for Brandon for weeks, her confusion intensifying. Richard, decorated exactly like she used to, hoping for a miracle visit from their son. He called Brandon on Christmas Eve, desperation evident. "Son, your mother's having a really hard time. She keeps asking for you constantly. Could you drive up for just one day?" "Dad, Jennifer booked us a ski trip to Aspen. She says I need to stop enabling your emotional dependency and focus on our marriage relationship." Jennifer's Instagram that night showed them toasting champagne in a luxury ski lodge, her caption reading, "Finally learned to put our relationship first. #boundaries, #self-care, #priorities." The recording equipment started in 2021. Richard documented everything now, the missed calls, the hollow excuses, Margaret's tears when Brandon didn't come, didn't call, didn't acknowledge her existence. In one particularly painful call from 2022, Brandon's guilt finally showed through his carefully constructed defenses. "Dad, I know I should visit more frequently, but every time I think about coming, Jennifer reminds me how toxic the situation is. She says watching Mom deteriorate isn't good for my mental health or career." "What about your mother's mental health, Brandon? What about her heart?" I know, Dad, but Jennifer says professionals can handle it better than family members emotionally." 2022. Brandon missed Margaret's 65th birthday for a couples retreat Jennifer had planned months in advance. January 2023. When Margaret fell and broke her hip badly, Richard spent 3 nights in the hospital with her, never leaving. Brandon sent flowers with a card signed by both him and Jennifer professionally. "Thinking of you both." Brandon and Jennifer, had never met Margaret in 8 years of marriage to her son. By Margaret's final year, she'd stopped eating regularly, her body slowly surrendering. In her lucid moments, she'd look toward the door with heartbreaking hope, waiting. "Where's my boy? I want to see my boy before I go." The last voicemail Richard left was February 10th, 2024. His voice breaking. "Brandon, your mother is dying. The doctors say maybe days left, possibly hours. She's been asking for you constantly, son. Please, son, please come home now." Brandon called back 3 days later, casual and unhurried. "Dad, I'm so sorry I missed your urgent call. Jennifer and I were at a medical conference in Orlando. How's Mom doing now?" "She died yesterday, Brandon. Your mother died yesterday morning at dawn." The silence stretched forever, suffocating and complete. "Oh, God. Dad, Jennifer said it wasn't that serious yet. Why didn't you make it clearer in your message?" 563 missed calls said otherwise, son. Brandon couldn't make the funeral either, his excuse familiar. "Jennifer thinks it would be too traumatic for me given my guilt over not visiting more during her illness." Richard buried his wife of 42 years alone, surrounded by neighbors, who'd watched him fight this battle without his own son's support or presence. That's when he knew exactly what he had to do next. 3 weeks after Margaret's funeral, Brandon called, not to check on his grieving father, not to share precious memories of his mother, but to discuss what Jennifer called Richard's property management crisis urgently. Richard was sitting in Margaret's chair, the burgundy recliner where she'd spent her final months watching birds. Her reading glasses were still on the side table, her crossword puzzle book half finished, frozen in time. Dad, Jennifer and I have been talking seriously about your situation here. Those were his opening words, not "how are you holding up," but a clinical assessment delivered with his wife's authority backing every syllable. I'm grieving, Brandon. That's normal when you lose your wife suddenly. It's been 3 weeks, Dad. Jennifer did some research extensively. She says prolonged grief can indicate cognitive decline, especially in men your age specifically. She thinks we need to take immediate action. Action. Jennifer had been researching him like a legal case, analyzing vulnerabilities. I'm 62 years old, not 92, Brandon. Age isn't the only factor, Dad. Jennifer pointed out that the stress of caregiving, the financial strain, the social isolation, these things damage executive function permanently. She's concerned about your ability to make sound decisions going forward. Richard pressed the record button on his phone carefully. This conversation felt important to preserve forever. What kind of decisions worry Jennifer, son? Well, for starters, you're sitting on nearly $3 million in real estate while drowning in medical debt currently. Jennifer ran the numbers precisely. That house is worth $2.8 million, Dad. She says you could downsize, clear your debts, set yourself up properly for retirement. Jennifer had done her homework thoroughly. Property values, Richard's financial vulnerability, the most efficient extraction method available. This house is my home, Brandon. It's where your mother and I built our life together over decades. And that's exactly the kind of emotional thinking that concerns Jennifer deeply. You're not being rational, Dad. You're letting sentiment override financial logic and common sense. Sentiment. Jennifer was calling his love for Margaret mere sentiment, dismissing 42 years. Your mother died in this house, Brandon, in our bedroom, holding my hand tightly. You think I should just sell that memory away? Dad, Mom is gone now. Jennifer says clinging to physical spaces isn't healthy psychologically. It's actually a symptom of complicated grief that can progress to serious cognitive problems if untreated professionally. Every word sounded rehearsed, like Jennifer had coached him through this conversation repeatedly. Are you saying I'm mentally incompetent, son? I'm saying Jennifer thinks you're showing signs of impaired judgment currently. And, as a doctor, I have to agree professionally. The responsible thing would be to transfer the property into competent hands before you make irreversible mistakes financially. Competent hands. You mean yours and Jennifer's hands specifically. Dad, Jennifer has a law degree and financial planning experience extensive. I'm a doctor. We understand asset management better than someone in your emotional state currently. The recording device was capturing everything: his tone, Jennifer's influence, the complete absence of empathy for a man who just lost his wife. So what exactly are you both proposing here? Sign the house over to us. Jennifer will set up a trust. Properly. Make sure you get the psychiatric care you clearly need. You can keep living there, of course, but under proper supervision and guidance. Supervision, like Richard was a patient in his hospital ward. And what if I refuse this arrangement? The pause was telling, revealing Brandon's prepared response. When Brandon spoke again, Richard could almost hear Jennifer coaching him word by word. Dad, Jennifer researched the legal requirements extensively. As a medical professional, I'd be obligated to report cognitive decline in an elderly patient, especially one who's demonstrated poor judgment about finances and self-care recently. You're saying you'd have me declared mentally incompetent legally. Jennifer thinks we should have you properly evaluated by qualified professionals first. If they determine you can't manage your affairs safely, then yes, guardianship proceedings might be necessary for protection. Guardianship. Jennifer's legal background was showing through Brandon's medical threats seamlessly. Brandon, I took care of your mother for 8 years while you were building your career with Jennifer's support. I managed everything alone, and now you think I'm incompetent? That's exactly Jennifer's point, Dad. She says the stress of caregiving has clearly affected your cognitive function permanently. You're not the same person you were 8 years ago, and we can't ignore that reality. Brandon was right about one thing. Richard wasn't the same person anymore. But not in the way Jennifer thought or calculated. I need time to think about this carefully. Of course, but Dad, Jennifer says not to take too long deciding. She's concerned that every day you delay getting help, your condition could deteriorate further and complicate matters. His condition. Jennifer had diagnosed him through Brandon remotely, found him guilty of grief, and prescribed signing away his home as treatment required. I'll call you soon, Brandon. We'll discuss this further. Good. And Dad, Jennifer wants you to know this is coming from a place of love. We're trying to protect you from making mistakes you'll regret permanently. Love. After 8 years of Jennifer. Keeping Brandon away from his dying mother systematically, she was calling attempted theft love and protection. Richard hung up and stopped the recording. 24 minutes and 12 seconds of his son systematically dismantling his competence, under his wife's direction and control. But what struck Richard most wasn't Brandon's cruelty exactly. It was his complete surrender to Jennifer's agenda and manipulation. Every argument was hers. Every justification came from her research and planning. Even his medical authority was being wielded at her instruction precisely. The man, who'd been too ashamed to visit his dying mother, was now shameless enough to steal from his grieving father, all because his wife demanded and orchestrated it. Richard sat in Margaret's chair for a long time, thinking about the son he'd raised versus the man Jennifer had molded and controlled. Brandon had always been easily influenced and malleable, but Richard had hoped marriage would strengthen him, not turn him into someone else's weapon entirely. Then he picked up the phone and called Patricia Miller, his attorney. Patricia, it's Richard Wilson. I need to discuss urgent legal matters regarding my son and his wife immediately. The war Jennifer had started was about to end very differently than she had planned or anticipated. Patricia Miller's office felt like a sanctuary, safe and professional. Richard had been there dozens of times over the years, but this visit carried the weight of finality and consequence. Richard, I'm so sorry for your loss, Patricia said warmly. Margaret was wonderful, truly special. Thank you, Patricia. She always said you were the only lawyer who treated people like humans instead of billable hours. Richard placed his phone on her desk and hit play. 24 minutes of Brandon and Jennifer's coordinated assault on his mental competence played out. Patricia's expression darkened with each passing minute, her legal mind processing the implications. Jesus, Richard, this isn't just elder abuse. It's a calculated legal and medical conspiracy combined. Your daughter-in-law has clearly researched guardianship law while your son provides the medical justification strategically. Can they actually succeed with this plan? They can try, but it would require multiple independent medical evaluations, court hearings, substantial evidence of cognitive impairment documented. Jennifer's law background gives her dangerous knowledge, certainly, but from what I've observed in our meetings, their case would be difficult to prove convincingly. Some tension left Richard's shoulders, relief washing through him. What are my options here? Patricia opened her legal pad, pen poised. We could wait and defend reactively, but given their coordination, I'd recommend offense instead. Document everything meticulously. Build a comprehensive record of their behavior and consider protecting your assets before they can challenge your competence legally. Richard thought about 8 years of evidence sitting in his filing cabinet. Missed calls, broken promises, documented abandonment while Jennifer actively encouraged Brandon's absence systematically. Patricia, what if I told you I had 8 years of evidence showing Brandon abandoned his dying mother at his wife's direction specifically? Phone records, recordings, financial documents proving I handled everything alone while Jennifer kept him away deliberately? Her pen stopped moving abruptly. That would be devastating to their credibility entirely. Elder abandonment orchestrated by a lawyer spouse using a doctor husband as the instrument? That's career-ending territory, Richard. And what if I wanted to sell the house completely? You're within your rights, though if you're considering what I think you're considering—" Richard had been contemplating this since Margaret's funeral, the idea growing stronger. Their empty house felt like a mausoleum now. But more importantly, he'd realized something profound. Brandon was right about one thing. Richard wasn't the same person he'd been 8 years ago, exactly. He was stronger, wiser, and done being. Manipulated entirely. "I want to sell the house, Patricia." To the Alzheimer's Research Foundation specifically. Margaret always said if her suffering could help other families somehow, it would give her illness meaning and purpose. Patricia's eyes widened with understanding. "Richard, that's a $2.8 million donation. Are you certain about this decision?" "I've never been more certain of anything in my life. And Brandon and Jennifer." She waited. Richard smiled grimly. "They can find out with everyone else publicly." They spent 2 hours working through details meticulously. The house would transfer to the Alzheimer's Research Foundation at fair market value, funding a new research wing in Margaret's name permanently. Richard would retain residence rights for 1 year while determining next steps forward. "There's one more thing," Richard said as they finished paperwork signing. "I want Brandon and Jennifer to learn about this sale in a very specific way publicly." And he explained his plan carefully. Patricia listened with growing amazement, understanding his strategy. "Richard, it's certainly poetic justice delivered, but are you prepared for the public nature of this confrontation?" "Patricia, Jennifer researched how to steal my house using Brandon's medical degree as leverage specifically. Brandon threatened to have me declared incompetent so they could inherit property I was supposedly too mentally ill to manage myself. I think some public accountability is exactly what they